Hi and welcome to another video. Today I want to talk about the worst books I read in 2019. Now I have made this list and there are 5 books on it. There are some different genres here. So there's contemporary romance, there's fantasy, there's historical fiction. So it's a mix of different things. But I'm not gonna put them in order. I just wish I hadn't read them. I don't recommend them. I think they're pretty bad. But these again are my personal opinions. So the first book I want to talk about is Ayesha at Last by Uzma Jalaluddin. I read this because in the summer I participated in Jane Austen July and I wanted to read some Pride and Prejudice retellings, and this one was one of them. And unfortunately, I did not enjoy it. In this one, we follow Ayesha, who is in her late 20s and she's a Canadian Muslim. She is a bit rebel because she doesn't want to do what other people expect her to do. She's into poetry and she has a job as a substitute teacher. Basically, what this book sets her out to be is somewhat opposite to the stereotypical quiet Muslim girl who always does what she's told to do and always focuses on getting married and making the best marriage possible. As the main male lead, we have Khalid, who is a very conservative and religious Muslim. He wears a robe and a skull cap at work and he believes in arranged marriages. So he's okay with getting an arranged marriage because he believes that love can come after marriage. So I picked this up because this sounded interesting, like a Pride and Prejudice retelling with Muslim characters where one of them was very religious, and I wanted to see this Muslim rep in this particular setting. This one follows loosely the Pride and Prejudice plot points, but it goes away from it a little bit, so it's really much modernized. But I didn't feel that the book delivered what the premise promised. So Ayesha was promised to be this very determined and outspoken young girl, but she lets, for example, her cousin step all over her and use her basically. And then Khalid is portrayed as this very religious conservative Muslim who wears a robe and a skull cap. But he's kind of looked down upon, and then he finally decides to change his appearance and wear more modern clothes, and then suddenly he becomes more attractive and more popular. So I think this did exactly the opposite of what it should have done. I didn't like the writing either. It was too simplistic and there were just too many cliches and stereotypes, and there wasn't really character development. So overall, I did not enjoy it and I felt like DNFing it multiple times. For a much better Pride and Prejudice retellings with a Muslim representation, I would recommend Unmarriageable by Sonia Kamal instead. But I'll link the video I made with these 3 Pride and Prejudice retellings for you in the cards above and down below as well, if you want to check them out. The next book on this list is Internment by Samira Ahmed. I picked this up because this was quite hyped over the summer, I think, and it had an interesting premise. So basically this is a YA contemporary / dystopian. It's set in the very near future where Layla and her parents are forced into this internment camp because of their religion. So Layla finds herself in this camp where, together with her boyfriend and an ally from inside, kind of starts a revolution against the camp and the camp's director. So this sounded interesting and it draws parallels with the Nazi concentration camps from Second World War Germany. It also draws, as an example, the Japanese-American internment camps during Second World War. This tackles definitely a lot of important topics and a lot of great themes which are important for everyone to read. But I don't believe that these themes were tackled really well. So my main critique in this one is that there's absolutely no showing. There's 100% telling. So everything is kind of spoon-fed to you. And I really don't like books like that. I mean, I like to make up my own mind. I like to reach my own conclusions. The main protagonist also makes a lot of stupid, risky choices. All she seems to care about was meeting with her boyfriend and him sneaking into the camp to steal a few kisses. And she's supposed to be the face of the revolution here. So I was kind of disappointed by that. If you want to read a better novel which tackles similar subjects, I would recommend American War by Omar El-Akkad. The next book I want to talk about is The Gentleman's Guide to Vice and Virtue by Mackenzie Lee. I picked this up as part of a reading experiment because I wanted to read 5 popular young adult books to see what the hype was all about. And this one, unfortunately for me, was one of those titles where I thought it was a bit or very overhyped. So I did not like this one because 1. It felt too long. 2. I did not enjoy the main character at all, even though he set out to be an unlikable character. He was just simply too annoying. 3. I did not like the writing style. So this was set in the 1700s. So to make it a little bit more historically accurate, the author sprinkled some words throughout the book to give this a more authentic feel. But the rest of this book was so contemporary in its writing style and in the way the characters spoke that whenever one of those words appeared, it just took me out of the story, and I was thinking, well, what this doesn't make sense. So this book is basically also a romance story, but I just don't think it was done really well because this relied heavily upon a romance trope, which I really don't like, which is that creating tension and postponing the ultimate goal of this couple getting together by not making the couple talk to each other and discuss the problems they have, if you know what I mean. I think I went a bit of a roundabout way in describing that. But basically, if these two characters would have talked to each other, there wouldn't have been any romantic tension at all. If you want to read a great adventure story or revenge story with romance and great action, then I would recommend The Count of Monte Cristo by Alexandre Dumas. Then I want to talk about 2 fantasy books, and the first of those is Everless by Sarah Holland. So this is set in this medieval type of fantasy world, and there's this kingdom of Sempera where time is money, and time is extracted from blood and made into a coin, which then consumed, so you can add time to your life. Basically only the rich people can afford it. So the poor people sell away their money, and I guess they die early, and the rich people can basically live forever. So in this novel, we follow Jules. She has lived at this great castle called Everless back in the day, but something happened and they had to flee. Now she lives with her father in a poor village, but her father gets sick, so she has to go to Everless to work as a servant and then to earn money to help her father. But when she gets there, she discovers the secrets about her past, and she gets involved with the big plot line happening in this world where she's basically at the center of it. So per se, I didn't have anything negative to say about it other than it was, again, generic, written very formulaically, and there was nothing special about it. I think it just was not memorable for me. And then the last fantasy I have on this list is a young adult paranormal fantasy called The Wilds by Donna Augustine. So this had a very interesting premise, like most of these YA dystopian books. This is set in a future world where basically a plague destroyed almost all of humanity. There are some pockets of humanity left, but most of the United States is covered by a forest called the Wild. At the beginning, we meet our main character, Dahlia, who is a plaguer, so she's the very few who survived this disease. So she's kind of locked up. She has some magical abilities as well. But at the beginning of this book, someone breaks her out, this mysterious guy, and they flee to the wilds. This story is written from her perspective, and it was the most boring perspective I have ever read. She is a very typical young adult dystopian heroine. She's beautiful, but she doesn't know it. She's smart, but she doesn't know it. She can fight, even though she has never learned to fight. So she's basically this perfect girl. Her inner dialogue is full of platitudes, so it was really, really boring being in her perspective. I was really annoyed at having to read her thoughts. There's also the love interest, Dax, the guy who broke her out, and he was also this very stereotypical male character who likes her but doesn't want to show it, who acts like a tough guy, who's very territorial even though he says he doesn't like her. So there was too much stereotyping in here for me to enjoy it. So despite all of this, I was interested to see where this will go, and I started the second book called The Hunt, where another very big YA trope is introduced called the love triangle. So after that I decided this is it. I'm gonna close this chapter of my life and stop reading this nonsense. So these are all the 5 books I read, which I really did not like this year. I think most of these are, 2 of these are quite known ones. The others are not so, maybe. Especially these last 2 are quite unknown dystopian young adult paranormal books. I don't know where I picked them. I think I had them on my Kindle for some reason. I don't know when did I purchase them even, but let me know what is your least favorite book you read this year. I want to avoid that, I guess. Well, this is it from me for today. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.